we're seeing a larger market for an environmental sensor, which really brings in that recurring revenue. So in the medium term, that's going to be our real key product going forward.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Light Science Technologies CEO Simon Deacon. Simon, very good to speak with you. You've reported revenue growth of roughly 30%. In which division have you seen particular growth?
We've seen growth in all the divisions. We saw contract electronics manufacturing grow by 5%. The controlled environment of agriculture grow by 250%. And the new sort of startup passive fire protection has grown and contributed 1.8 million in this financial year. So we're really seeing a spread across the board. But the biggest growth was a controlled environment of agriculture, I'm pleased to say. But I'm also pleased to say there's a bit of a leveling up going on in contribution through the divisions.
You also became profitable in the second half of the year, Simon, and you reduced your losses substantially. How did you achieve that?
Management really focused on more efficiencies within the group through the contract electronic side and the manufacturing side, but also in the passive fire protection and the CEA. So what we're seeing is more revenue, and the products that we sell within the CEA, controlled environment of agriculture, have got more margin on them, and so has passive fire protection. So what we're seeing is, as we grow those revenue in those divisions, a higher overall margin for the group, which is really pleasing to see because it drops down onto that bottom line and generates that cash net profitability.
Can you talk about what's driven the margin growth that you've reported?
The real growth driven is, I think, in the passive fire protection. What we're seeing is there's a huge demand. We hear it in the news every day where cladding needs replacing, cavities need filling, and protection being put in them. And so what we're seeing is there's 11,000 buildings in the UK alone which are over 18 meters, and we heard the government this week pushing for them to be done early, up to 2029. So there's a real big push to get those. So there's really a strong growth and strong margins there. But in the controlled environment of agriculture, where it's been a bit slower in the past, we're really seeing that 50 million pound pipeline starting being converted for the group, especially in the recipe of light, the controlling of the environment. So you're doing less waste and you're getting higher yields. And then the sensors really coming through and breaking through, providing that data, that live streaming data, which is required.
You mentioned that growing traction in CEA. How will you maximize growth in this market?
Maximizing growth is going global. Our largest order a few months ago was for in Europe, was a French company building an extension and a refurbishment also in Germany. So we're seeing the products going global, and we expect to do that through partnerships. Globally, we're focusing on America's markets, the Middle East, and also Australia. We recently signed during the summer a South African distributor, and that's the quickest way to enter a market through their customer bases at a low cost level, which is really important to us to spread our technology products across the board through those partnerships.
The announcement mentions that a pest control client has a discontinued products line, and that may have an effect on revenue. How will this impact the business moving forward?
We're used to working with customers. The pest control client we've been working with for over 10 years. And production lines and products come to the end of their life, and that's to be expected. We still make many other production lines for them, and also they've got many products. And what we're seeing in the contract electronics side is really a reassuring back to the UK manufacturing due to the uncertainty in the world. So we really expect to be able to do more product for them in the future. There's a long-term relationship there. So I'm not worried about that fact. That's normal day-to-day business for us, and we're used to that change within our customer base.
Simon, what does your cash runway look like moving into 2025?
I'm pleased to say it's increasing. The availability from what we reported at the half-year results is increased. We've got 1.9 million pounds worth of cash, and that's growing due to the availability of the profitability that we did in H2 of this year. And we see that continuing into 2025 and beyond. So really pleased to say that, we've really turned a corner. We're really growing as a company in all three divisions. And that puts us in a really good position for the start of 2025.
And how can investors expect the portfolio and the sales mix to evolve into 2025?
I'd like to see more of a leveling up. Obviously, a lot of our work is still predominantly the revenue in the contract electronics side. And I see that the controlled environment of agriculture will continue to grow. We've got a really strong pipeline, as I mentioned earlier, of 50 million pounds for the group. So I see that leveling up and bringing more in from a lighting point of view and the recipe of light, but also the controls and the sensors. And where the sensors really come in is we're seeing a larger market for an environmental sensor, which really brings in that recurring revenue. So in the medium term, that's going to be our real key product going forward, really innovative product and really very special because there's nothing like that out there. In the passive fire protections, the margins are strong. There's lots of work, as I mentioned earlier, out there to do. So I see a leveling up between passive fire protection and the controlled environment of agriculture, slowly leveling up with the contract electronics across the board, which will push the margin up overall. So we expect to see a more increasing gross margin as we move forward, which will then drop down to the bottom line.
Simon, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Stephen.
That's Simon Deacon, the CEO of Light Science Technologies.